My name is Laura, and today I'll be presenting a work that's being made along with Liam Taylor and Marina Ancianes. And the name of our work is Delayed Plumage Maturation in Mannequins, a review on its patterns and functions. So, plumages have always called the attention of researchers, not only because they are beautiful, but also because they play key roles in the lives of birds, such as attracting mates, competing for territories, hiding from predators, etc. And it's interesting to note that plumage variation depends not only on species, but also on populations, as is the case of blue-crowned manakins, but also on sex, as the golden color manakin represented here, and age, as the swallow-tailed manakin. And related to age, there's an interesting process that's called delayed plumage maturation, which is the late acquisition of a definitive plumage pattern accompanied by a period of reproductive delay. So why do birds have these predefinitive plumages? So many authors have talked about the constraints and functions that could explain why predefinitive plumages exist. So talking about constraints, there is the mode constraint hypothesis, which states that the growth of new feathers is limited because they are lineage constrained. So this means that some birds, they go through modes where they don't replace all their feathers completely. So the predefinitive plumages can be explained by birds retaining some of these old feathers between modes. Now, the resource constraint hypothesis states that feather development is limited by the resource availability in the environment. Another hypothesis is the HarmonicConstraint ones. That states that hormonals, they actually tie feather development to other sexual behaviors. In a way, that plumages can be constrained because they actually depend on other sexual characteristics like gonad maturation. In terms of functions, the predefinitive plumages of birds could actually be hiding them from predators, as is stated in the Cripps hypothesis. Now, the mimicry hypothesis actually states that such predefinitive plumages allow access to resources by mimicking juveniles or females. Now, the social signaling hypothesis states that the predefinitive plumage will indicate an individual's social and or reproductive status in order to reduce competition. So, what do we know about predefinitive plumages in mannequins? What could be going on here? So mannequins, they are neotropical birds and that perform, in which males perform beautiful courtship displays, as exemplified here by these pictures, and they actually present delayed plumage maturation, which is exemplified here by the helmeted mannequin. We have an adult and a young male, and we can see that it still has green plumage. It's not completely black and red. And some species of mannequins, they present several plumage stages, like in the swallow-tailed mannequin, while others don't have predefinitive plumages whatsoever, as is the case of the pale-bellied tyrant mannequin. So our objective with this review is to review mannequins' plumage patterns and synthesize data from behavioral studies to understand what constraints and functions may be guiding mannequin predefinitive plumages. Well, let's start talking about mannequin plumage patterns. We know that mannequin plumage is actually based on three broad classes of feather coloration, which are carotenoids. They are pigments that are acquired through diet. They are also composed by melanin and is not acquired through diet, so individuals can synthesize melanin. And also structural colors, and it's actually produced by the interaction between the environmental light and feather structures. It's interesting to note a pattern that we observe, that when they are present, carotenoid-based plumage is the first to appear, along or not with other kinds of plumages. So for well-studied species, it usually takes from 3 to 4 years for a male to develop the definitive plumage. But there are cases, as in Parrotsiphia linearis, where can take up to 5 years. And it's also interesting to note that sexual maturation actually comes before definitive plumages. So we have studies with the genus Carixiphia and Tylophia and Ilicura that show that these males, they have a complete gonad maturation while they are still predefinitive. There is also a lot of variation within species in terms of how long they take to acquire the definitive plumage. For example, in red-headed manakins, a male can take from 3 to 13 months to become completely definitive. While in white-crowned manakins, males usually start developing their definitive plumages when they are 1 year old, but some males may still be completely green, so predefinitive, when they are 3 years old. So there's a lot of variation in there. Sexual dichromatism is also highly present in the family. 45 species of the family actually are dichromatic, while only 8 are monochromatic. And the presence of predefinitive plumages, they actually seem to be related to the presence of sexual dichromatism. This is interesting because, for example, in cryptopeople, a mannequin species, the loss of dichromatism has been associated with the loss of lacking behavior. And this might be true for other monochromatic mannequins. So it might be that these predefinitive plumages, they actually play a role in the development of courtship displays. They could, for example, be facilitating the process of learning the display or help in establishing hierarchies in legs. What evidence do we have to the constraining function hypothesis? So in relation to the mold constraints, we did not find evidence to support it because mannequins do not retain old feathers between molds. So every time that they mold, they will actually produce new feathers, and including the ones that look predefinitive. We also didn't find support to the resource constraint. So here, resources could be limiting three color classes, which are carotenoid, melanin, or structural colors. So as of melanin, it is produced by amino acid that birds are able to synthesize, so they don't rely on food, for example, to produce it, even though minerals can affect melanin deposition. So far, there are no studies showing how this could affect birds in the wild. As of structural colors, they can depend on nutritional condition at the time of molt because structural colors are formed through fine feather arrangements. So the nutritional condition could affect that. But if they were to be constrained by it, then we would expect that birds would not grow new feathers. They would stop growing feathers, stop the molt. As of carotenoids, many of the evidence that carotenoid availability may be influencing the plumage patterns comes from birds that are granivores, which is the exact opposite of mannequins, which feed largely on fruit, which is a carotenoid-rich and abundant resource. So there are studies that show that when carotenoids are available in the diet, they can use this resource, they can use carotenoids to allocate both to immune functions and also to the plumage. And young males presenting the carotenoid-based plumage first actually indicates that this may not be a restricted resource, because even young inexperienced males can actually successfully forage on it. As of the HarmonicConstraint hypothesis, we found mixed evidence because sexual hormones, they actually can affect pigment deposition and uptake. And it could be that hormones are the proximal explanation to the interspecific variation in numbers of years required to acquire the definitive plumage. However, gonad maturation while birds are still in the predefinitive plumage indicates that there could be a delinking of plumage from other sexual characteristics. In terms of function hypothesis, we did not find evidence for the crypsis one. So, because predation in the lek is extremely rare, even though that researchers have made hours of behavioral observations and video footage, it is extremely rare, and annual survival rates are actually high in mannequins. Another thing is that the eye-catching plumage, like the carotenoid-based one, is actually developed early, not late. And that, coupled with the fact that young mannequins practice courtship displays, which calls the attention of predators, goes against the crypsis hypothesis. We also did not find evidence for mimicry. So there can be plumage differences between females and young males, such as ultraviolet, which we cannot perceive, but they can. And some authors have actually stated the juvenile plumage can be actually duller than females. So young males could be distinguished not only by their plumage, but also by their behavior. Like I said, they usually practice displays, which is something that females do not do. And experiments with stuffed models actually indicates that adult males can differentiate young mannequins from females. They will usually try to attack young male stuffed models, and they will try to copulate with females. There is actually another interesting case, which is the one of the Araripe mannequin, Antilophia buchermani, in which they found that predefinitive males sire young, green males sire young, but they are recognized and chased by other males. And copulation occurs outside of males' territory, so it doesn't look like they are mimicking females in order to sneak into territories and acquire more copulations, for example. So far, the best supported hypothesis is the social signaling one. This comes from records of adult males being less aggressive with juveniles in comparison to adult males. So in conclusion, we think that further research should focus on investigating if and how hormonal variation governs differences in predefinitive plumage expression. Should also investigate differences between plumages of young males and females, and also make experiments and manipulation tests designed to investigate the role of the signaling hypothesis in other mannequin species. Thank you very much, and do not hesitate to contact me if you have questions.